That's correct, Wendy. We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking.
Despite people's misgivings about live-action remakes, especially Mufasa for some reason, this one I actually really loved. The others were interesting in their own ways, but this one hit something in my heart that I felt was important to talk about, especially now. I feel like the way that we use stories in entertainment now have lost their usage. They no longer allow us to gather around and learn vital lessons through symbolism and archetypes and metaphors. We are too distracted to see the lessons plain on the screen. A lot of us pick up the story and parts of the meaning behind it, but many of us still view movies and stories in general as just entertainment. Originally, stories were meant to teach others about the unknown and uncontrollable aspects of life. It was a way to sort of explain the unexplainable, things we did not understand yet. It was the magic that allowed us to think clearer and feel safer in a world that felt indifferent. Stories are meant to be mulled over and dissected, whether the filmmakers or the writers meant it to mean something or not. Quote, storytelling is one of humanity's oldest and most beloved traditions, bridging generational gaps and drawing communities together. Since the dawn of civilization, oral storytelling has been a primary method for the transmission of history, cultural practices, moral lessons, and entertaining tales. It has not only shaped our understanding of the world, but also ultimately served as the bedrock for literature, theater, cinema, and many more contemporary arts. Unquote. It's the whole reason Rafiki was telling Kiara this story in the first place, to teach her to not be afraid because of its effects on everything, including herself. She even later learns this in the second Lion King movie with the outsiders. Eventually, they learn to accept and see the similarities in each other instead of the differences. Lions lived in Europe, Asia, and Africa, and even in North America at one point, but have now been only mainly seen in parts of South Africa, south of the Sahara, and in India's Gir National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary. They are currently at risk globally and are actually classified as vulnerable on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List. They also have plummeted in numbers by 43% over the past 20 years due to habitat loss and human conflict, according to AfricanImpact.com. Over the last 100 years, the African lion population has decreased by 90%, with lions disappearing from 26 countries overall. Now, how lions work is simple. They live by working within prides, as we all know. But just like the film, typically an adult male will try to take over other prides, usually resulting in the removal of the cubs from the previous male, removing the previous bloodline, just like Obasi says to Taka when Mufasa first comes into their pride, that, quote, the only true bond is blood, unquote. The lionesses typically hunt at any point in the day, but especially at night.
And they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Usually prioritizing dusk and dawn to ambush prey in cooler temperatures. So in my opinion, even in nature, clearly lions carry that duality of light and dark within them also, not just us humans. Because lionesses do most of the hunting, lions can be seen lounging in the shade during the day for up to 18 to 20 hours to prepare for those hunts at night. Now, knowing all of this, they act as the savanna's version of wolves in the forest. They are the keystone species, one that affects the very environment and the nature of the food chain. Like wolves, they control the population of certain species within their ecosystem. If they were to die out, other species might be able to fill that gap, but it would be detrimental not only for the ecosystem there, but also for us humans. Our actions affect them, and in turn, how this world functions. Quote, they play the critical role of managing large herbivore populations of buffaloes, impalas, zebras, and even elephants and giraffes. In a balanced ecosystem, the number of herbivores needs to be kept in check. If there are too many herbivores, the vegetation is overgrazed and habitats inevitably degrade, unquote. The better we take care of ourselves in every way, the better Mother Earth, as I like to call her, will become. As many people can deduce, lions typically are associated symbolically with royalty, courage, and strength. According to mafalo.com, they say, quote, lion symbolism can be defined in many ways, and this is just a short list of the most common things they represent. If you look back to different eras and cultures, you would find that lions can symbolize many things, unquote. Mufasa's tawny coat has some symbolism in the philosophical sense. Quote, the yellow lion embodies duality, ferocity, and benevolence, primal instinct, and noble leadership, leadership. As the king of beasts, it represents courage, facing fears head-on, pride, both literal family units and honorable self-assurance, and protection, guarding the pride or the realm, unquote. Whereas Taka's coat color could be seen in opposition to Mufasa, the fact that he is already an outsider and doesn't fit in with the rest of the Pride lands, or that he is the opposite or darker side of Mufasa symbolically. Kyros and his pride's coats could symbolize the corrupted version of divine light, purity, and profound spiritual guardianship, often regarded in African culture as sacred messengers or, quote, star lions from the heavens. As we learn in the movie early on, Mufasa's name literally means king or ruler in Swahili. It shows that he, as the character, naturally embodies that leadership quality that the other animals can sense and trust. You can even see it in how he treats the other animals and birds, especially in the song I've Always Wanted a Brother, which we'll touch on later. You can see it after he saves Taka's mother Eshe and comes back to the Pride. He is positioned right on top of the rock, the place where Obasi usually resided. Whereas Taka's name means waste or desire in Swahili or hawk/falcon in Japanese. It shows a tragic connection to what his name means. I would argue that this shows how Taka thinks of himself in comparison to Mufasa. He desires what his brother naturally embodies because Mufasa understands what it's like to be an outsider, whereas Taka has only ever known being in power, even if only through his own father. Kyros' name means lord, or in some contexts, messenger or herald. It's generally a name that is associated with exceptional leadership and honor, none of which Kyros in this particular movie has. Kyros was originally just doing things to take over for power for his son, but then his son dying gave him a reason to go harder and get revenge, despite him being the one that killed him technically. Let me explain. Because he chose to see the world that way and decided to conquer as much of the land as possible because of his greed and manipulation, he put his son in danger and ended up losing him, a natural consequence of this type of mindset in the most exaggerated way. It doesn't always end up this way, but when you put it to the extreme, yes, it can most definitely happen. It's a disservice sometimes to not point something out to someone that a behavior or way of thinking is affecting them and the people around them. But sometimes even when you point it out, they still won't see the error of their ways, and so they sow their own karma/their own fate, especially considering how the movie ends with his death. It's similar to what happens in real life when we choose to continue down a darker path, a path that fills our minds with survival level thought processes. Quote, I must do X thing in order for me to be happy, even if it means stepping on other people to get it, unquote, for example. So with this explained, I'll go into how it works when it spreads. What I wanted to talk about first is why Taka became Scar and how it started. First, we see in the beginning, Taka's father, Obasi, displays some rather off-putting statements about what a king is supposed to do, where he doesn't earn anything. He just has the status. He takes naps and is just as cowardly as Taka when scared by Mufasa and Taka when they grow up, implanting ideas that Taka cannot trust Mufasa and that he will betray him, as well as saying that, quote, deceit is a tool of a great king, unquote, and that he is better than Mufasa without directly saying it. He plants the idea that he will never have to work to be king, that he will not need to answer questions or deal with challenges to that title. It's like that line from Avatar, Fire and Ash, where Neytiri talks about the insanity in their minds.
I hate the insanity in their minds.
She's looking at her own children but seeing the enemy. That's the tragedy of Taka. Over time, even the people closest to him stopped seeing the brother underneath the anger and only saw what he had become. It's the fear making the flame of anger and revenge be stoked hot, making Taka feel like because he lost everything, he must do something, even if it costs him everything he has left, which cultivates the entitlement later in the film over Sarabi. That entitlement was obvious from the beginning when they sang the brothers' song.
I'm king, you always hate my side. I'm king, they could do as they're told. No one looks down on me.
So it was pretty evident that even at that young age, his mind was already, quote, infected with this type of thinking. He even says during that song in an attempt to change the subject by saying can't catch me, when Mufasa was trying to explain that the birds were free and that you can't control them. Basically saying that you can't control everything, even when you're king. Later in the film, you see the song We Go Together, where Zazu says, sometimes you need a buzz like you, which in that scene, Taka is still not seeing the perspective that he has is what ultimately breaks him. He's already already thinking of Sarabi as a possession to be taken rather than a lioness with choices. After Sarabi chose Mufasa despite Mufasa trying to deny his own feelings for her, it was seen as betrayal. Taking away the choice of Sarabi in his mind, she was already his. And because he didn't get what he wanted, he plotted to have Kyros kill Mufasa, his rage blinding him to the fact that Kyros was the one who killed his own father, Obasi. Same thing happened to Taka, who then becomes Scar because of Kyros. Because of this, quote, betrayal, he resorted to using the enemy for his own gain. They say the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and he used that to his advantage. Because of those feelings in Taka's heart, Kyros was able to wind his way in and make him feel welcomed, despite what he did to Taka's original pride. Taka falling for the bait, as well as making himself think it was Mufasa's fault for everything bad that happened to him. Eventually, when they caught up to them in Malele, Taka eventually woke up to how bad he messed up, remembering the bond they once had as cubs, and as they grew up and tried to rectify it. Afterward, yes, Mufasa ended up saying he would never call Taka by his name again, and Scar named himself. But the thing is that because one person was wounded because of their own choices, it creates a gravitational pull to pull other people in who have also not healed their wounds. Like Taka, always loving Mufasa and being there for him, but expecting him to stay within the role of a follower, someone always in his debt. A manipulator only, quote, loves you as long as you stay beneath them or owe them something. But other people could see that Mufasa was the kind of leader that can't hide who they are or their potential, no matter how much he tried to help Taka be the king he was supposed to be. Plus, it doesn't help that his own father told him that Mufasa would betray him. He didn't want to believe it. But with how his father cultivated his worldview and the fact that it made him feel like he would always have someone beneath him and would never have to work for that power, despite Eshe trying to teach him that crucial point, it was inevitable that Taka would act the way that he did and eventually become Scar. He only wanted someone who would not challenge his position or question him or their loyalty to him. You can see it in the original Lion King when he took over the Pride Lands. He even says, quote,
I am the king, I can do whatever I want.
When that's not true. Being king of something is realizing that you now have to take care of not only yourself, but do what's right for everyone. He didn't care about that. He only wanted power because he was told he would have it from a young age. The entitlement and the fact that he didn't put in the work to become the kind of king he wanted to be in his heart ended up repeating the cycle of the lust for power, which when Kyros came in, he knew he had to play that way in order to get what he wanted. Or at least he thought he did. Kyros gave him an option, an easier option: blame. Blame someone else for his problems. So when Sarabi enters the picture, she knows who she is. She knows what a true king does. She knows who saved her because of the smell and the words she heard. Truth can't be brushed away. It will eventually come to the surface, one way or another. So again, when fear enters the picture and makes you think that the only way to win is to deceive, that's when you make yourself vulnerable to ideologies that look good on the outside, like Kyros' white pelt may represent, and may even sound good or that might help you in some way, but ends up hurting you in the end when you don't conform. Take gangs, for instance. They usually will come in when they see that you're needing help in some way and see that you might be desperate enough to take whatever help that they can give. But as soon as you decide this isn't for me or that you want better for yourself, they say you owe us. That's how they trap you. But psychological manipulation is not quite that straightforward. I'll give you an example. Take the song by Ren called Money Game Part 3. I highly recommend watching the music video, by the way. It's spectacular. But it talks about a boy who grows up and uses his power to manipulate with money because of the mindset that his father taught him to view the world through, including himself. All that boy wanted was approval and love from his father, and he was unable to get it. And because of that not being reciprocated and healed/integrated within himself, it showed on the outside by his actions, creating a world with more violence, illegal drug use, and more, and ended up taking his own life because of it. Taka and this boy in the song are the same archetype. They both chose blame because love felt unavailable. Imagine what could have become of them and those around them if they had looked at life differently and learned from their deck of cards they were given in their own lives. It's similar to our own lives. If we let what we're told about ourselves dictate how we see ourselves and the world around us, it creates more opportunity to be basically hijacked by manipulative people in manipulative systems. Another way to think of it is exactly how I explained in the Alien video. The short version of that is when we let fear and insecurity fester inside us, it eventually ruptures and creates havoc somewhere else, usually in the form of other people falling prey to those same fears and insecurities until it becomes something that those in power can manipulate. Take the scene from Beauty and the Beast, for example.
The beast will make off with your children. You come after them in the night. We're not safe till his head is mounted on my walls. I say we kill the beast. So it's time to take some action, boys. It's time to follow me. We'll rid the village of this beast. Who's with me?
It escalates until one or more groups become the targets. That same song from Beauty and the Beast explains it well.
We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious and beast. Bring your guns, bring your knives, bring your children and your wives. Say, what in it and the lies? The hero is Christopher, Christopher. Here we come, the beauty strong, baby, that's the deadly roar.
Despite the beast never having harmed them, the moment Gaston framed them as a threat, fear spread faster than the truth. When the live action came out, they added the line,
With all due respect, do you want to be next?
when LeFou tries to stop him. The newly added lyrics to the mob song are especially important.
Call it war, call it fight. You can bet they all will follow, for in times like this they'll do just as I say.
And LeFou singing,
There's a beast running wild, there's no question. I don't fear the wrong monsters with me.
but in the end, this is simply illustrating a point. This is what fear can escalate into when we allow ourselves to become divided from one another. It starts as a manufactured fear people may not fully understand. Then it becomes socially amplified and eventually morally justified. And we have seen in history what that can lead to in the end. It's like when Yoda said,
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
which leads me to what Rafiki said, quote, well, the outsiders come from many prides, but when they are born, they are hated because they are different from their tribe. Sometimes, when the people most like you don't love you, it is a hurt that can cause the greatest pain, and this pain can lead you to hate everything, unquote. But how do we combat this? I wanted to point out the scene where Rafiki is outcasted by his own family, the covering of one eye. To me, that symbolizes and embodies what I said in The Knight's Tale breakdown about seeing someone for who they are. They are literally covering one eye because they are saying, we don't understand who you are and we don't want to. And because they don't understand and don't want to, they see him as dangerous and blame him for something that happened in the group.
If I'm like you, a curse to us all. That's not true. It doesn't belong here. All in favor of banishment. Cover one eye.
In many spiritual traditions, covering one eye is literally saying, I don't see your soul. I see the world, but I don't see you. Quote, eyes are probably the most important symbolic sensory organ. They can represent clairvoyance, omniscience, and or a gateway into the soul. Other qualities that eyes are commonly associated with are intelligence, light, vigilance, moral conscience, and truth. Looking someone in the eye is a Western custom of honesty. In this way, covering of the eyes by wearing a helmet, sunglasses, etc. can mean mystery, not seeing the complete truth or deceit. The eye often means judgment and authority, unquote. Just as this scene illustrates the point, they are choosing willful ignorance because Rafiki is not the same as them. They are, quote, deceiving themselves so they don't have to feel guilty about banishing a child who healed them and found them water. After he's banished, something very poignant is said by him to Taka.
It is easy to doubt everything when you know nothing.
It's easy to be afraid and ignore the truth, but harder to face it in yourself and those around you.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
It's why I personally think free thinkers have often been targeted throughout history. People like Malcolm X, or groups who were simply trying to say they deserved a seat at the table. And we still see versions of that today. People who challenge dominant ways of thinking are often treated as threats because questioning harmful systems or narratives can make people uncomfortable, especially when their identity, status, or worldview is tied to them. It's similar to characters like Taka or Dr. Man. Once fear, pride, or control control become part of someone's identity, they may resist anything that forces them to confront themselves or change. With Mufasa coming into contact with him, it shows that a ruler needs the light of the sun, aka truth, and the light of the moon, aka Rafiki, in order to rule justly. He needs to know the mystery, deception, and how to counter it, which Rafiki embodies just by being himself. Although it is somewhat vague and a little bit more anecdotal for the sake of the film. It also sort of exposes to Taka that relying only on power and aggression are not the only tools of a great king, as his father taught him. It's the first time Taka sees that a king's greatest tool isn't aggression, but perspective. He also says in that same scene, quote, "Sometimes a dream is all you have, the only truth that lives in you, like the memory of a great king," unquote. It's that same meaning of be the change you want to see in the world. At least that's how I interpret it. But in order to change it, after you look inside yourself, you need to understand how you have been manipulated in the small and bigger scope of life. A lot of the psychological traps that we see today are in the form of propaganda on either side, on the larger end of the spectrum. People saying things that they will never fully commit to once given the keys to power. But it also applies to the individual. That also has a ripple effect on reality. It's a deliberate attempt to change truth in their favor, whatever that truth is. There's actually 17 different types of manipulation tactics used in life. But I'll only go over the ones that are seen in the film and how that expands and spreads. First, there's the obvious, threats and coercion. Kyros displays this well. He's the one that is the biggest cat in the land, so he can easily intimidate and manipulate someone without having to lift a claw if he wanted to. That's how wars start in the bigger scheme of things. Second, there's guilt trips. At the end, Kyros says that Taka killed his brother, which in a way is true, but it only started that way after Taka believed that his brother betrayed him, which was started by his own father and cultivated by Kyros. In the end, even though he did try to fight Kyros with Mufasa, those ideas still stayed in his head and he wasn't able to process them in a healthy way, which then ends up with him killing Mufasa in The Lion King. He used that with Simba as well, making him think that it was his fault that Mufasa died, which is a form of projection as well, obviously. And lastly, the last one is isolation. Taka was separated from Mufasa because of this line of thinking and ended up spiraling, which is shown in the form of him falling from the cliff and tumbling down in the snow right to Kyros. It's also a form of another manipulation of playing on Taka's insecurities, believing that he gained a son, since Taka didn't have a father, even though he was the one that killed Taka's father, basically providing protection to Taka even though he was already protected. What Kyros is doing here is something that actually happens a lot in manipulation. Two people become emotionally divided, and then a third person steps in to exploit that divide for their own benefit. Psychology actually has a term for this: triangulation. Taka let that entitlement burn away the brotherly connection he had because he lost everything and blamed it on Mufasa when he should have blamed it on Kyros, and perhaps even distanced himself from his own father's thinking. But he wasn't self-aware enough to see it and change that. Plus, we wouldn't have a good story if that were the case, now would we? It, quote, encourages the victim to question the manipulator less frequently and to eventually stop questioning the manipulator altogether. It can also be used to increase the victim's feelings of isolation, which increases their dependence on the manipulator, unquote. The land that they're in is a mystical spot in the Pride Lands called Malele. Its meaning is in Swahili language, meaning forever, eternity, always, or constantly. The movie is basically saying that we must always defend ourselves against people spreading ideology that is harmful for everyone. To do that, it must start within, on an individual level first. It's saying that we must start putting aside our differences and start focusing on similarities and strengths of each group and how it can benefit the collective group as a whole. We can't defend ourselves if we aren't thinking for ourselves. Just like Mufasa was saying at the end,
Trust me, nothing will change if we remain isolated to our own tribes without concern for the fate of others. Today they are here for us lions, but I assure you, as you let them walk among you in search of us now, they are plotting to come for you tomorrow.
It's true. We all have our own strengths, our own cultures, and our own people. But in the end, to stop manipulation requires understanding how the manipulator thinks. If they start thinking for you, it's already lost. The speech that Mufasa gives on that mountain precipice makes me cry every single time. Even though it's a children's movie, it still rings true.
There is no lion as large as an elephant, strong as an oxen, fast as a cheetah, or tall as a giraffe, who can soar and scout as wide and far as the cranes and hawks in the sky. So, can't you see? Every being is a place in the circle of life. My breast is your breast. Your fight is my fight. I will not bend to evil, and neither should you.
We see this today. The more we allow people who hunger for power by twisting reality and exploiting fear to remain in positions of influence, like a dragon hoarding its wealth without wisdom, a dragon without a rider like in Aragon, the more we risk our own Milele becoming overrun with manipulation and division. But it's comforting to know that there are still people trying to lead with empathy and understanding instead of fear and control. And now more than ever, I personally think it's important to lead with love instead of letting fear decide who we become. Just like Sarabi said,
And they will always take more.
but only when given the chance. Unchecked, that mindset often demands more and more. When they take more, they twist the truth more and more until it is unrecognizable, little by little, which is how history is lost and entire empires fall, and how some fall prey to and cultivate fascistic rulers. What is felt and thought in yourself ends up showing outwardly, collectively, eventually. You end up pulling like-minded people towards you. It's up to you to create your own pride with people who want better in general. Not only for themselves, but for others, and people who know how to spot lies and manipulation and fight for the truth. The cave they fight in after that speech is symbolic as well, in my opinion. It's symbolic of the death and rebirth of a stray, as Mufasa called himself, into a leader. But the cave also represents the death of Taka and the birth of Scar. Caves typically were used as burial sites in history, so it fits very well that they had this fight there. The fate of the Pride Lands rested there as well. In a way, it was a fight for freedom of tyranny from Kyros. His Pride Land was basically barren. Other prides were decimated, and Kyros sought to be the one king in all the lands in the area. Because of the way he was treated or thought the world worked, it affected everything in his path and around him. Even within his own pride, he ruled with power in the absence of love. His own lionesses were afraid of him. He even says in his song, Bye Bye,
The moon cuts a path through the sky by night or by day. It doesn't obey neither do I. Everything in my clutter, bye-bye. Everything that I touch is the circle of life. It's a lie, a pretty way to say there are predators and prey.
But while they were in the water, it symbolizes fighting your fears but moving forward anyway. Mufasa could have freaked out while fighting Kyros in the water and could have been killed, but he pushed through anyway. That's how it feels sometimes to want change so badly, but systems try to keep us down and drown us out, in this case literally. The fact that they are white lions is interesting as well. Quote, white lions hold immense cultural and spiritual significance in many African traditions. People have long revered them as divine beings, believing they bring prosperity and blessings to their communities. African mythology portrays them as messengers from the gods and guardians of the land. Their ethereal appearance has also captured the imagination of storytellers and artists, symbolizing purity, power, and the mystical forces of nature. Unquote. In this particular rendition of lion storytelling, it seems that they have flipped their original meaning on its head. This threat of, quote, sameness spreading across a geographical area. This pursuit of power over others because they are, quote, better than the rest. Does that sound familiar? That, in conjunction with Mufasa's speech, puts it into perspective. Kyros and his pride decimated the environment around them. The mindset he represents only leads to devastation and death if allowed to continue to the end. We've seen that in history as well. The 1930s were especially important in that regard in Germany. History has shown how dangerous those mindsets can become when fear, superiority, and manipulation are allowed to spread unchecked. My point here being that we cannot allow deceit to run rampant and change reality as we know it to something unrecognizable in the coming years. We're all doing our part as best we can right now, but we could do more. We just haven't found the courage in ourselves yet, in my opinion, of course. What I want people to take away from all of this is that I personally believe a lot of the pain and division we see in the world comes from the moment we decide certain people are no longer worth understanding. At some point, we stop seeing the humanity in one another. We stop asking where someone's fear, anger, pain, or worldview came from, and instead reduce them to labels, enemies, or symbols. Stories help us fight against that. Examining ourselves through stories is one of the ways I think people can genuinely change, not just individually, but collectively. Stories allow us to see ourselves in others. to recognize our fears, flaws, hopes, and potential reflected back at us through characters, symbolism, and archetypes. It reminds me of the scene from Zootopia where Judy says,
I'm gonna make the world a better place.
it's important to not let the world tell you that one person can't change the trajectory of a life, a community, or even a country. Just like the water buffalo at the end of Mufasa,
One lion's hope cannot change the fate of Malele.
I personally respectfully disagree. I think change is possible. It just takes time, that's all. And just like the end of the movie Mufasa, maybe becoming the king of your own life simply means changing your perspective, confronting your fear, and choosing not to let pain define who you become. Maybe our own Maleles begin the moment we start seeing each other clearly again. Because underneath all of our differences, I think most people are ultimately searching for the same things: safety, love, meaning, happiness, and a place where they feel like they belong. If you'd like to check my sources, feel free to scan the QR code and read up on the subjects yourself. Transparency is key here at The Wild Den. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Other than that, I hope you learned something today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.